The snow fell in heavy, quarter-sized flakes, blanketing Interstate 70 in a shroud of silence. Behind the wheel of her unmarked black SUV, Sarah Bennett, 38, director of the FBI, gripped the steering wheel with steady hands, her sharp green eyes cutting through the gray dusk. The dashboard radio hissed with a field agent's voice, demanding confirmation of her position for a sting operation targeting a shipment of stolen rifles. Sarah muted it. Another voice echoed in her mind, sharper than the storm, her mother, 2 weeks ago at her father's funeral, whispering, "Take a seat in the back. Sarah, the family needs space." The word, family, hit like a fist. Raw and unyielding, as if she'd never belonged. The highway stretched ahead, a ribbon of asphalt under swirling snow. Memories of the funeral gnawed at her. Her older brother, Officer James Carter, 42, a local hero in Jackson County, Missouri, had stood at the podium, delivering a eulogy that painted him as their father's only child. Sarah, who'd flown in from D.C. and paid for the headstone, was relegated to a folding chair behind a wall of flowers. Her mother's cold nod, "Thank you for coming," felt like a dismissal to a stranger. The sting of it lingered, as did her father's old refrain, "James keeps these roads safe. Feds like you just cash checks." Sarah's knuckles whitened on the wheel. Resentment a quiet passenger. Red and blue lights exploded in her rearview mirror. "Back up," she assumed, signaling and pulling onto the shoulder. Snow crunched beneath her tires as she lowered the window, letting in a blast of diesel and frost. Heavy boots approached, deliberate, with a faint limp. "James." From that shoplifter chase back in '09. No greeting, no warmth, just a barked command. "Step out of the vehicle. Now." Sarah complied, stepping into the biting cold, hands raised to shoulder height, her FBI badge glinting beneath her coat. "James, I'm on a federal op," she said, voice calm but firm. His eyes, hard as the icicles on the guardrail, didn't waver. "You think that badge makes you special?" he sneered, his breath steaming. Before she could respond, he shoved her against the hood, the metal cold through her sleeves. Handcuffs snapped shut, biting her wrists. A minivan slowed, a teenager's phone camera catching the scene. The highway felt like a stage, and Sarah was center spotlight, betrayed by her own blood. "James, is this who you are now?" Her voice didn't crack, it cut, precise and controlled. He didn't answer, his jaw twitching like it did when they were kids, chewing sunflower seeds at Little League games. He marched her to his cruiser, snow swirling like confetti at a twisted celebration. Then, a black Suburban screeched to a halt, nearly clipping his bumper. A tall agent in an FBI windbreaker leapt out, fury blazing behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Officer, remove those cuffs. Now." James hesitated. "She claims FBI status." "No proof." The agent's voice dropped to gravel. "She's not just FBI. She's my director." The air froze. James fumbled with the cuffs, his hands shaking as they fell into the slush, glinting like a discarded promise. Sarah didn't rub her wrists or curse. She held his gaze, letting silence speak louder than any badge. His eyes flickered with something, recognition, maybe shame, but he said nothing. She stepped toward the Suburban, climbing in without a backward glance. Inside, the heater hummed, carrying the faint scent of stale coffee. The young agent behind the wheel, Agent Harris, 29, kept stealing glances in the rearview mirror, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sarah broke the tension. "Tissue?" she asked, her tone almost bored. Harris scrambled, handing her one from the console. She dabbed the red marks on her wrists, already bruising a soft plum shade. "I'm sorry, Director," he stammered. "Focus on the mission." She cut in, folding the tissue neatly. "The rifles are still in play." Harris nodded, shoulders easing slightly, and they merged back onto I-70. Radio codes and exit numbers their only conversation. The Kansas City field office garage loomed by 10 p.m., its fluorescent lights casting a sickly glow over the Suburban. Sarah stepped out, her civilian coat still creased from James's grip, her badge dull against the black wool. The elevator ride to the third floor smelled of disinfectant and nerves. As the doors slid open, Conversations hushed. Analysts straightening. A janitor pausing mid-mop. Whispers followed her. That's her. The one from the video? Sarah's boots thudded in a steady cadence. A rhythm honed at Quantico when no one thought she'd make it. The situation room buzzed with screens and caffeine jitters. 20 staffers turned as she entered. A logistics officer half rising. Unsure whether to salute. Seats. Everyone, Sarah commanded, her voice slicing through the room. We've lost 12 hours due to local interference. The arms convoy is confirmed for 1,400 hours at the Wendell County silo. A young tech raised her hand. Voice shaky. Thermal drone picked up 3 bodies. 1 vehicle. Minimal heat signatures. Likely cold storage crates. Sarah nodded, clicking through satellite overlays. Good. 2 perimeter units. Drone eyes high. Clean chain of custody. Questions flew. She answered with precision, batting them down like flies. By 10:27, the plan was locked. Contingencies set. Coffee cold. As she turned to leave, Senior Agent Ross Parker, 52, salt and pepper hair and loyalty older than her parking spot, blocked her path. Director. A word. In the hallway, his voice dropped. A dash cam clip from this morning's on a watchdog site. It'll go national by noon. And there's more, a leak report. IP traced to James's precinct system. Sarah's pulse spiked, but her face stayed stone. Show me the metadata. He handed her a printout. James's badge number. Timestamps. The same equipment ID tied to forged warrants last year. She folded it into her coat. We proceed with the op. No deviations. Parker hesitated. Director. With respect, I can't recuse myself because my brother lacks integrity. She said, steady. Thank you for bringing this to me. She headed to the armory, signing out a Kevlar vest. Her name next to the operation code. The quartermaster eyed her bruised wrist but stayed silent. A phone alert buzzed. 40,000 views on the dash cam clip. Comments erupting. She powered it off, catching her reflection in a mirror. Hair disheveled. Eyes sharp. Coat still wrinkled. She smoothed the lapel, not for vanity, but to feel the steady beat beneath. The Wendell County silo rose from the prairie like a rusted relic, its shadow sharp against the wheat stubble. Sarah popped her door before the SUV stopped. Boots hitting cinnamon-colored dust. Command. Visual confirmed. Proceeding. She keyed into her throat mic. Voice crisp. The air tasted metallic. She drew her sidearm, slipping through a gap in the corrugated wall. Inside, the temperature dropped, light slicing through bullet holes. A man in a ski mask counted cash on a crate, another hummed by a radio. Federal agents. Hands up. Sarah's command echoed. The counter froze. The second man reached for a weapon. She tackled him, cuffs snapping shut as her team stormed in. The takedown was clean, too clean. Then she spotted it. A burner phone on an oil drum. Screen glowing. She tapped playback. James's voice. Casual and cold. Move the drop 30 minutes early. She won't be there. No witnesses. Her stomach clenched. But she sealed the phone in an evidence pouch, keeping her face neutral. A shot rang outside. High and sloppy. Sarah bolted through the gap, sprinting after a fleeing figure in camo. She tackled him in the prairie grass. Dirt in her mouth. Who told you to move the drop? She hissed, pinning his wrists. He spat blood. Ask your brother. He said you wouldn't shoot. Her finger hovered over the safety for a heartbeat. Rage older than the moment pulsing through her. She cuffed him instead, muscles trembling not from effort but from betrayal's weight. By 1500 hours, the silo was secured, suspects loaded, rifles inventoried. Back at the field office, Sarah stood at the debrief table, voice even as she listed chain of custody numbers. No one asked about the burner phone, logged under an anonymous tag. Her initials absent. In the locker room, metal benches and chlorine scent surrounded her. She sat, hands finally free to shake. James's voice replayed, confident she'd be late, certain she wouldn't pull the trigger. Years ago, he'd taken a detention slip for her, protecting her clarinet solo. Now he was sabotaging her career. She tucked the evidence pouch deeper into her go bag. Betrayal wasn't abstract, it was a voicemail. A dare. A chipped coffee mug from their childhood kitchen. She dialed internal affairs from her hotel room. Voice flat. Anonymous tip. Level 3 conflict. Officer James Carter. Audio proof attached. The supervisor pushed for details. But she gave none. Just the file. The air vent clicked softly as the call ended. One domino down. The war was just beginning. The Kansas City field office was a fortress of fluorescent hum and restless ambition. But as Sarah Bennett stepped out of the locker room, her boots echoing on the tile, the weight of her brother's betrayal clung heavier than her Kevlar vest. The burner phone in her evidence pouch burned like a coal in her go bag. James Carter's voice looping in her mind. Move the drop 30 minutes early. She won't be there. No witnesses. Her brother, the man who'd once swapped his detention slip for hers, was now orchestrating a plot to dismantle her career. But Sarah, 38, director of the FBI, wasn't one to crumble. She'd built her life on precision. And she'd carved through this betrayal with the same surgical focus. Back in her hotel room, the air thick with the hum of a cheap radiator, Sarah dialed internal affairs from a burner of her own. Anonymous tip. Level 3 conflict. Officer James Carter. Audio proof attached. She said, voice flat as the Missouri plains. The supervisor pushed for details. But she offered none. Uploading the file and ending the call. The room fell silent, save for the soft tick of the air vent. One domino down. But the game was far from over. Her phone buzzed with an alert. The dash cam clip of James cuffing her had hit 100,000 views. The internet erupting with theories. She powered it off, her reflection in the dark screen showing eyes sharp enough to cut glass. The next morning, Washington, D.C., greeted her with a sky the color of regret. Sarah drove to her childhood home in Fairfax County, Virginia, the familiar chipped flower pot and wooden eagle on the door stirring memories she'd rather bury. Inside, the scent of lemon cleaner and bacon lingered, the crocheted doily on the coffee table a relic of a life that never felt hers. Her mother, Diane, 67, stood at the kitchen sink, humming an old gospel tune, her silver hair catching the light through lace curtains. Sarah didn't hesitate. Mom, she said, voice low but unyielding. Diane froze, the dish in her hand trembling. You're early, she murmured, eyes scanning Sarah for damage. Not love. Who is my father? Sarah's question landed like a grenade. Diane's dish towel slipped to the floor, her shoulders sagging under an invisible weight. Why now? She whispered. Sarah stepped closer, her boots creaking on the linoleum. Because I know James isn't my brother. Because I found a folder in evidence with your handwriting. Diane sank into a chair, hands shaking. I never wanted you to know, she said, voice cracking. Your father, he was a contract operative for the Bureau. Black Ops. I didn't even know his real name. He was gone before you were born. Sarah's chest tightened. And James? Diane shut her eyes. He always sensed you were different. I told him you were adopted from a cousin upstate to protect you. Protect me? Sarah's voice was quiet, sharp. You protected your secret, not me. Diane's lips quivered, but Sarah didn't soften. She turned to the pantry, needing air, and brushed against an old rice bag. A yellowed envelope fell, addressed in cramped handwriting. Sarah. For when it's time. Her pulse thumped as she tore it open. The letter inside, dated 12 years ago, was signed J.D. Sarah, if you're reading this. Diane let the truth surface. I was never meant to stay. But I've watched you. You fight for what's right. Blood doesn't define you. Purpose does. The words carved into her, steadying her resolve. She left the house without another word. Diane's plea, Sarah, please, fading behind her. The letter rested on the passenger seat. A quiet reminder she wasn't anyone's mistake. Back at the Bureau's Washington field office, Sarah bypassed the front entrance, slipping through the service corridor to avoid the press. The server room's amber lights blinked like a pulse. Using her director-level access, she broke into the classified family records archive, typing JD in a string of numbers from the letter. A single file appeared. Project Cypress. Restricted. Sealed. Her heart pounded as she broke the seal. A faded photo showed a man in camouflage. Eyes like hers, The summary detailed a covert informant embedded in a rural corruption task force. 1995 to 2007. Then. A name. Officer James Ruiz. Badge 4917. Flagged for intimidation. Racial profiling. 2007. Investigation closed due to local interference. Ruiz. James's birth surname before Diane remarried. Sarah braced against the desk. Her brother, the man who'd mocked her ambition, had a history of buried complaints, harassment, missing body cam footage, excessive force. Diane's name appeared as a witness who refused to testify. But the next file hit harder, a redacted report. Sensitive minor. Dated 2003. Sarah, 17 at the time, had filed a complaint against Officer Ruiz after a traffic stop where he mocked her ID and threatened her with ice. She'd written it down, mailed it, and forgotten it, until now. The memory flooded back, flashing lights. Her knuckles white on the wheel. James's voice dripping with contempt. She opened a new document. Her hands steady. Subject. Patterned misconduct. Officer James Carter. Paragraph after paragraph flowed. Dates. Evidence tags. The burner phone audio. Traffic cam footage showing James and his ex-girlfriend, Detective Lauren Vale, 35, exchanging a manila folder with a faded FBI emblem. Lauren, with her photographic memory and saccharine charm, had accessed sealed archives, a breach only possible with James's help. Sarah saved the report to an encrypted drive, sealed it with tamper tape, and drafted two more, one for the Attorney General's Public Integrity Section, another for the Office of Professional Responsibility. No emotion, just facts, sharp as a blade. Sarah reached out to Agent Tom Hayes, 50, a former colleague with silver-threaded hair and a loyalty forged in Kuwait. They met at Arlington's Memorial Park, the marble bench cold beneath an oak. Voice match is 89%, she said, handing him a flash drive. I need your lab to push it to 100. Off book. Tom studied her bruised wrist, his eyes flashing concern. Why now? Because corrosion spreads, she replied. If I don't stop it, I go down with it. He nodded, then slid her a folder. They're running one on you. Office of Professional Responsibility. Filed by Lauren Vale, 6 weeks ago. Claims you forged a federal order. Sarah's pulse thudded, but she stayed still. The folder contained timelines, phone pings, email headers, proof James and Lauren had rerouted her encrypted messages through his precinct server. A deliberate sabotage. This isn't sibling rivalry, Tom said. They want you discredited before a bigger bust. Sarah closed the folder, her voice steady. Help me, not because we shared Sunday papers, but because the Bureau still matters. He nodded. Mission accepted. The Fairfax County precinct smelled of linoleum and disappointment. Sarah arrived at 0803. Her blazer pressed sharp. James lounged at the watch desk, boots crossed, smirking like the room was his kingdom. Detective Lauren Vale glided in, clipboard clutched like a shield, her smile all sugar and venom. Director Bennett, what a surprise, she trilled, loud enough for officers to overhear. An administrative spot check from someone with your complicated resume. Sarah's smile was thinner, colder. Complications need daylight. Detective. In a cramped conference room, Sarah presented an audit. Evidence chains. Transparent policing. Lauren interrupted twice, her questions laced with insinuation. Sarah answered without blinking, but her eyes caught a chipped coffee mug behind James, identical to one in a photo with the burner phone. Her pulse spiked, but her face stayed neutral. I need the duty officer's signature for patrol mileage, she said, sliding a logbook across. James signed with lazy indifference, his ink matching a falsified wiretap request she'd printed last night. Another brick in the indictment wall. The hearing came weeks later. The committee chamber cold as February. James sat 3 chairs down, jaw tight, while Lauren's seat bore a card, on leave. Sarah took the stand, her notes on the walnut desk. My name is Sarah Bennett, Director of the FBI. She began, meeting each panelist's eyes. She laid out the timeline, James's gun in her face, forged warrants, Lauren's theft of sealed files, their traffic lot rendezvous. Her teenage complaint, buried for decades, resurfaced in redacted ink. Power is a loan, not a birthright, she concluded. I'll spend my tenure collecting interest for the people it belongs to. James erupted, chair skidding. You think you're so pure? You're nothing without that badge. Sarah raised a hand. Mr. Chairman, Exhibit 38B. The monitor flickered, showing James cornering a deputy. Menace clear. Gasps rippled through the room. The gavel struck. James was suspended without pay. Pending indictment. Lauren resigned by email before lunch. Reporters swarmed, but Sarah offered no soundbite. Her silence louder than their questions. Weeks later, a padded envelope arrived at her office. Her teenage handwriting on a letter she'd written at 17, detailing James's abuse of power. Diane must have kept it. Guilt-tainted. One line stood out. Don't let him take your fire. Sarah struck a match, watching the paper curl into ash in a porcelain dish, not out of spite, but release. They'd tried to silence her with shame. A badge, then fear, but silence, she'd learned, was a weapon when wielded to break a cycle. The embers cooled, and Sarah stepped into the DC dawn. Her purpose sharper than ever.